I want to teach you 3 ways to bring an audience into the story so that they can relive it with you. So in essence, you're going to invite them into the reliving room, right? As you're reliving that story. The first is this. I want you to create curiosity. Okay, curiosity is a storyteller's best friend. Curiosity piques people's interest. It gets them engaged. Here's the truth. This is a hard truth, and I don't know, maybe you don't want to hear this, but here's the truth. Nobody cares about your story. Like not even your mom, nobody at all. And here's the problem is often we say, let me tell you my story. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, people kind of go, why do I care? So here's how we avoid that. Instead of me turning you off before the story, what I want to do is pique your interest to bring you into the story. To do that, to create curiosity, before I start a story, I want to ask a you-focused question on the front end of a story. A you-focused question means the word you is in the question. So I'm going to ask a question like, have you ever experienced this? The technique is this. I'm going to tap into your world with a question, then I'm going to bring you into my world with a story. I've actually done this multiple times. Just a few minutes ago, I said, how many of you have ever read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? That was just to tap into your world with a question and bring you into my world with my story about Stephen Covey, right? And so instead of talking at you, I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to pique your interest with a you-focused question. Technique number 2 is I want to place you in the scene. Now, to place you in the scene, I can do this one of 2 ways. I can use the word imagine being here, or I can say, if you had been here when. So as you're telling a story, you can say, if you had been sitting in my office with me, or imagine being here. I want you to paint the picture so that I literally start to see it around me. I start to co-create it. This is the reason why when you read a book, you're kind of disappointed in the movie because, I don't know, maybe this is an international reference everybody can get, but like when you saw the movie Jack Reacher, weren't you like, Tom Cruise is not tall enough to be Jack Reacher? Like, why did they cast him? I don't know. But ultimately, we have a picture in our mind, and that's because we co-created it. They placed us in the scene. You can do that when you tell stories too. And number 3 is I want you to reinforce relatability. Now, relatability happens by having a conversational tone in the way that you speak. You say things like, have you ever felt that before? Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine? It's like for just a second, you're going to step out of the story and you're going to just say, are you with me? But just in a very natural way. In fact, whether you've noticed this or not, I've been doing this the whole time. Have you noticed? Do you see how I just did it right there? Do you see how I just did it again? Just in a natural way, we're going to have those conversational cues to keep people focused. So here's what I'm telling you. Before you jump into a story, you can ask a you-focused question, right? I'm going to tap into your world. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever thought about this? Do you ever worry about this? Right? And I'm going to pique your interest. Then I'm going to bring you into the story. Then I'm going to place you in the scene. Imagine being here. If you had been here when. And then once or twice, I'm going to reinforce that relatability by just having a conversational tone in the way that I speak. And that's going to allow people to relive that story with you. Those are 3 techniques that are simple, but they're powerful, right? So I want you to understand those. Hopefully those work really well. Let's come back over here for just a second. I want to share with you the blueprint for a story. And here's the thing. Every influential story follows a specific blueprint. It's simple, it's easy, but it's important. The blueprint is this. The model is struggle to solution. Here's how it works. You hook people with the struggle. You help them with the solution. There is something in our bodies, in our DNA, that we respond to struggle, to conflict, to challenge. It naturally engages us. Think about a movie for just a second. Let's say we were going to go to a movie and you go to the movie theater and you're so excited to see this movie because you've seen the previews. It's supposed to be the blockbuster of the year. You sit down, you've got your drink in one hand, your popcorn in the other. Do you see how I just placed you in the scene? Okay. So the movie ends up being about a guy that just merrily skips through life. No ups, no downs, no challenge, no struggle. Just everything works out. You and I would leave and go, that was the stupidest movie I've ever seen. Wouldn't we? There was no struggle. Here's the problem. In business, that's how we tell stories. We tell stories as solution to solution stories. Think about it. Most business stories sound the same. We say, you know what? We're great, and we've always been great, and we'll always be great. And if you work with us, that would be great. And most people are like, Great. See you later. Because what is real about that? Here's the thing. If you call your best friend and you all of a sudden say, I'm building this international business, and your best friend knows you, right? He knows that yesterday you struggled with your bills. That story doesn't add up. But a real story where you'll talk about struggle to solution and you'll say, hey, can I have a real conversation with you? Because here's the truth. I don't know if you ever worry about this, but you know me, you've known me for several years. I've held several different jobs. And the truth is, it's because I'm always looking to create something. I want something that will give me some sense of freedom where I can go on the vacations I want and I can afford the car that I want. And I'm not worried about some of these bills. Do you ever think about that? And as you engage them around real struggle, you can say, you know, I found something. And I think it has the potential to take me where I want to go. Or if you're talking about the product, like it's the same thing. Those products, they solve struggle. They solve problems. That's why they're so great. That's why they exist, right? And so our stories need to be struggle to solution. Now, do you want to know where I learned this lesson? My 3-year-old son taught me this lesson. I have 4 kids and my 5th on the way. I'm from Utah. And my kids, my boys, I have 2 boys and we're going to have another boy. My boys love me to tell them stories. And several years ago, they were on a Smurfs kick. Do you guys know Smurfs? I think internationally, everybody knows Smurfs. They're little blue people who live in a forest. There's a bad guy named Gargamel who almost catches them and then they escape. This is the premise of every Smurf story ever told. Well, I'd been making up Smurf stories for like a month. I didn't know how else these Smurfs were going to get away. It was just getting ridiculous. And I came home from a trip and I was tired and my boys were like, Dad, can we have a Smurf story? And I was like, no, I'm done. And they're like, come on, Dad, we'll never ask again. You know, that's not true. So I told them the dumbest Smurf story ever told. I said, okay, the Smurfs woke up. It was Smurfette's birthday. And the baker guy, he made a cake and they sang happy birthday. Okay, go to bed. And my 3-year-old son said, that's not a story. There's no bad guy. And I said, what? And he said, without a bad guy, it's not a real story. It doesn't count. I want a real story. And he was right. And I just wonder if sometimes you're telling your story to people, and in the back of their mind, they're going, that's not a real story. Tell me a real story. This business exists to solve problems. Your products exist to solve problems. As you tell those stories, they are struggle to solution stories. And when we learn how to tell those stories incredibly well, here's what happens. If you go back to those weighted scales for a minute, right? Credibility and relatability. Here's the truth. If the struggle is relatable, the solution becomes credible. Do you see how that happens? Right? It engages people and they go, yeah, that makes sense. I want to try it. I want to move forward with that. And so we learn how to tell those stories. Well, that's not true. We learn how to relive those stories. We bring them into those stories. We tell struggle to solution stories.